This week, Jose and Emma do some box pressing, Rafael Nodal borrows a concept from the wine industry, and a new Connecticut offering from Duran. So stay tuned. This is a Security Weekly production. Hi, hey, welcome to Stogie Geeks News. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, broadcasting live from G Unit Studios in Rhode Island. On the lines via Skype is Mr. Will Cooper. Welcome, Will.
Hey, Paul.
I am very excited to be on this episode of Stogie Geeks News, reporting to you the latest happenings in the cigar industry. Will, we've got some box presses coming from Jose and Emma, as we so lovingly refer to them as, not their company name, but Jose and Emma.
Jose and Emma from Las Cumbres Tobacco. I guess they're doing some box pressing. So it's interesting because Jose, he's the guy behind the Señoral and the Señoral Maduro line, and Emma's the woman behind the Freya line, which has kind of been her brand. And I guess they were trying to figure out what they were going to do this year for their 2016 releases, and they say great minds think alike. Both of them were thinking, hey, let's do a box press. So it was they were saying it was coincidental how they both decided to do a box press. And the interesting thing was, I think they both were also thinking they needed a box press to kind of fit a void in the portfolio. So Jose has added a 5 3/4 by 46. I guess you want to say Corona Gorda, called El Cuatro, to his Señoral Maduro line, and he kind of said he needed something that was a thinner ring gauge in that Señoral Maduro line. Mm-hmm. Now Emma, she went the opposite way. She felt she needed something bigger in terms of a Vitola, so she added a 6.5 by 55 box pressed cigar, and I got to give Emma credit. She gave me the pronunciation of this name. It's Mjolnir.
Ah, interesting.
Mjolnir. I would have never gotten it.
No, I wouldn't have either.
So, yep, and that's actually Mjolnir refers to, and I'm probably saying that wrong too, but it's close.
It's probably close.
Yeah, that's the actual hammer that the Norwegian god Thor used. So we expect to see both these cigars. They'll be showcased at IPCPR, shipping immediately after the trade show.
I like the larger ring gauges in that box press, as we've explained on the show before. I also like a box press in general. I think it's kind of it's a great shape for me because I like a little bit of a looser draw and a little more smoke production, and a box press tends to do that. So I love box press cigars.
And I agree, and we've talked about it, how it makes for, you could take one blend, it could give a whole new spin on it, even though all the tobacco components are the same. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to both of those.
And you said Rafael Nodal is borrowing a concept from the wine industry. I'm curious to hear what this is.
Yeah, and actually this is kind of this is one of these Rafael kind of giving me a little information when I visited him down in Miami. So I was kind of like antsy to talk about this for a while, but I couldn't. But he announced a new line in the aging room called Solera. And what Solera is it's a concept that's used for aging like sherry wines and brandies. And what it involves combining different vintages of the wine together. So supposedly that finished product in the wines, it kind of creates a whole new spin on it, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So he's actually, and this is something they've actually been doing for a while. They've actually been working with different tobacco vintages, putting those different tobacco vintages into bales and then aging them together. And basically what happens is the marriage of the tobaccos, the flavors kind of marry together from those different vintages. Because, for example, you could take a 2005 vintage crop, combine it with a 2007, or then look at a 2007 vintage. They could be very different profiles there. So in terms of now doing this with your aging process, it's kind of doing some blending while these things are sitting in these bales, so to speak. Now, Rafael's actually been doing this he actually did this for a release he did for a cigar store he owned back in 2005. So they had a house cigar which they were using these Solera cigars for. So now they're bringing it into a regular line, and they're going to have 4 blends under this line: a Sun-Grown, a Corojo, a Connecticut Shade, and a Maduro. There's going to be a consistent 4 sizes. There'll be 4 sizes for the 4 blends, all the same. A Festivo, which is a 4.7 by 52, a Fantastico, a 5.6 by 54, and a pigtail head called Fanfare, 6 1/8 by 57.
Fantastico. I like that name.
Yeah, Festival, Fantastico, and Fanfare. Yeah,
I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
Well, and I like the concept too. I think it's interesting. I think of putting cigars in my humidor and not letting darker wrapper cigars getting near the lighter wrapper in fear they're going to like melt together. And of course, when you age a cigar, the filler tobaccos age together the same way that they're aging it in the bale. So I think it's a solid concept. And as always, when we talk about new releases here on Stogie Geeks News, I'm very anxious to try it.
yeah, and me too. And best part about this is going to be in the $7 to $8 range because Rafael was saying that this actually aging process is a very cost-effective process, and it allowed him to bring down the price.
And I think this is going to be one of many new Connecticut's released in 2016.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And for sure, it's the Duran Azan Blue. So basically, it's going to be Duran Cigars, their first Connecticut Shade cigar they're releasing. So it's going to be a Connecticut Shade wrapper that's actually grown at Roberto Duran's plantation in Ecuador. So he's been kind of working on shade grown tobacco for a while, and now he's got something ready to go with it. And then he's going to be using Nicaraguan tobacco for the binder and filler. 3 sizes, 5 by 50, Robusto, a 6 by 52 Campagna, which is more like a Bellicoso, and a Toro Deluxe, 6.5 by 54. Again, the $7 to $8 price range. Now, all I know is I was down at Duran Cigars in Miami as well, and they gave me 2 potential finalists for this cigar. They were different. I don't know which one they picked.
Right.
They were both very good. There was one I did like better than the other, I'll admit.
Is it the signature that's light as well? It's not a Connecticut though.
The signature is more of, it's kind of that. It's got almost like an orangey wrapper on that.
Yeah, but that's the one with the blue band. That's the Roberto P. Duran signature.
That's the signature, yeah. That's a more.
I like that as a morning smoke. That's why I'm kind of curious to see what comes out of a true Connecticut. Because for me, when I go to the Duran line, I reach for that one in the morning. That's my morning smoke out of that line. So it'll be interesting to see how it compares to the Connecticut.
Yeah, like I said, I smoked both of them. I think they'll both be in your wheelhouse too. I don't know which one they ended up picking, and other than I gave them which one I liked better on it. So they were both very good. So whichever one they picked, people are going to be very happy with it.
Excellent. And we have some FDA updates.
Yeah. So this one's actually not a direct FDA update, but it's kind of ties into this whole thing.
It does. No, I agree.
Yep. So it was announced that De Los Reyes Cigars, who make Saga cigars, which Stogie Geeks are probably familiar with, has entered into an agreement with United Parcel Service (UPS) to basically launch a shipping platform. So what this platform is going to allow them to do, they're going to be basically integrating this through software. But what it's going to allow retailers to do is they're going to be able to get shipments directly from the factory in the Dominican Republic. So, and they're going to be able to get this within 72 hours. And what's really interesting about this is there's actually going to be a group called Annexum Marketing, which is going to serve as kind of the distributor, because there still needs to be a distributor here. And they're going to handle, like, automatically handling payment of federal taxes and the generation of invoices. This is big, because this is not just UPS saying we're going to ship from a factory. They've made an investment in technology to support this process. And it's basically putting to rest some of the stories about UPS getting out of shipping cigars, which we've heard last year with FedEx. So I think this is a real important announcement from this. Is obviously UPS is looking at this as a strategic opportunity right now.
Yeah, and well, I think this is good news. Anytime cigar manufacturers are forming relationships with, like, outside of the industry, especially with shipping and distribution, it's a good thing for the industry. The next story about the FDA, though, isn't such a positive story, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm not sure how much impact it would have had anyway.
No, and it was no surprise that the White House petition fell short. And I don't think there were expectations that, talking to Glenn Loop, it didn't sound like that they had really expectations that they were going to get the required 100,000 signatures on this petition. What I think they were looking to do is kind of keep momentum going, just keep
No,
a
I
voice
agree.
out there.
But now, if that's just a petition. That's not to say that this definitively would have had any impact on the pending or regulations by the FDA.
No, and in fact, I think that had a lot to do with why it fell short, because it only got 24,000 plus signatures. Because the last time what happened is all the White House did is they kicked it back to the FDA, and the FDA's Mitch Zeller basically did a rehash for why they're regulating. So there was really no one had a lot of faith, I think, in the petition.
It just seems to me like the FDA doesn't care. They're like, lawsuits, petitions, like they're on a mission. And it's interesting to see what obligations they will fall under with these regulations. But it seems like with things like petitions and lawsuits, they really don't care.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, like we've talked about it in our previous news episode, they get hit with lawsuits every week. I mean, so I wish like the folks from Global Premium Cigars, Enrique, a lot of luck with it. I think I'm glad they filed a lawsuit. They're gonna, but the FDA is very experienced at this too.
But also, what I think the lawsuits and petitions do is show that there are people that care about these issues and don't agree with what the FDA is trying to do or doing with the cigar industry. Same thing for the vape industry. I mean, they fell short as well with 74,000, just over 74,000. But I think it's important to show that people want their freedom. They want to be able to choose, and they don't want regulation from the FDA. I don't know if it'll have any impact on the end result, but I feel it's important that we show that we care about our freedom, right?
Yep, I totally agree on that. And that's why we were telling people, hey, sign the petition. Not that we felt that anything was going to happen, but it is the voice is being made. I don't want to say the voice is being heard, but the voice is out there.
Right. Well, and I think, the battles that we're going to need to continue to fight, and it's important to show that people in the industry and consumers of these products care very much about these regulations and the various factors. It's important to show the Congress, the House and the Senate, that there is an industry, how we're different, and that whole education piece needs to continue. Because really, if you think about how laws are passed in this country, that's really, I feel like the president doesn't have as much power as people think in a lot of circumstances.
Totally agree. And you brought up a point about those congressional petitions, which are still out there. Those you do need to sign. Those have a very different impact because that's a numbers game. And the more, like all these congressional offices, and I just had a friend who ran for Congress, so I kind of got a little insight into this. They basically do all this counting of what comes in, emails and things like that and petitions. So the more these things come in, they do have an impact. Right. So the congressional ones are still out there. You go to cigarrights.org, put your zip code in, and it will generate that out. Those are very important because there is some legislative votes coming up around appropriations, and obviously there is an exemption in that appropriations bill.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for watching Stogie Geeks News. That concludes this episode. Make sure you check out the live show at stogiegeeks.com/live every Monday night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And go to cigar-coop.com for all the latest cigar news and reviews. Thanks for watching.